All right, let's move on to the next fight. We got the first fight of the prelims. Before we get to it, please do make sure you guys hit that like button. We got over close to 200 people in the chat now. We're only at 66 likes. I'm not liking that ratio here, so make sure you guys go hit that like and support your boys. All right, let's move on to the next fight here. Like I said, first fight on the prelims. We got another women's MMA fight down at strawweight this time. We got the debut of both fighters here. Cheyenne Bays versus Montserrat Ruiz, who's 9-1, 5-1 on the base side. Heavy chalk on one Cheyenne Bays, who's coming in at -340, plus 280 on Ruiz. The last thing I saw of Ruiz was her Invicta fight, where she was in the main event and submitted that woman with a beautiful scarf hold key lock choke, where she was able to position the arm with her legs and then torque on it and get the submission there. Very, very beautiful work on the ground for sure. But Bays just seems like she will almost have her beat everywhere. Am I willing to kind of trust her at -350? Not really. I think she'll be able to kind of outstrike her on the feet when the fight does get into the clinch position. I love what I see from Bays. She does a good job of kind of placing her forehead on the chin and the chest of her opponent, pushing them up against the cage, breaking their posture, and really getting that dirty boxing going. And then at distance as well, she shows really good competency with her striking, keeping that range. She's going to have a 3-inch height as well as, I believe, a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. And you better believe she's going to be using all 3 inches of that height and 2.5 inches of that reach. If this fight does get close, though, in terms of Ruiz closing the distance and trying to drag this to the ground, I think that's kind of her best way to win this fight. Now, Ruiz is a King's MMA product under Rafael Cordero, but I just don't see that killer type of Rafael Cordero type of striker from her. She seems like she's okay with being outstruck from the outside. Heck, Danielle Taylor, 5'0" Danielle Taylor goes out there and outstrikes her in the first 2 rounds, lose the 3rd round, but Star does a good job of, obviously getting the judge's decision. I think that Bays is a little bit further along than Taylor, but I still think that there are some things that we need to kind of see her shore up. Again, she's super young. I believe she's 23, 24 years old. She's 5-1. She doesn't have the biggest record or most extensive record yet. So let's pause the brakes on a -350 here. Let's just see how she actually competes inside the UFC before we're willing to go out there and actually pay that type of chalk here. But the spot I do like, obviously the overs, -250 on the over 2.5. It Bays, the majority, if not all of her victories have come via decision. So rather than playing her straight, just take that -250, because Ruiz has shown solid durability, right? She's only lost 1 time. She's in the fight pretty much the entire time, but Bays does a good job of kind of keeping fights at her pace, fighting at her pace, and then obviously going on to win decisions. So Bays -340, not a good money line. Over 2.5, -250, not too shabby. And then obviously Bays by decision is -150. Again, a little bit too chalky for a decision prop for my liking, especially with somebody as unproven as a Cheyenne Bays, but that is probably the most likely outcome in this fight. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah. I most likely outcome I see in this fight would probably be another decision. This one's -215, so again, not that good of a price tag. But yeah, I think you got Bays comes in. She's initially supposed to take on Kay Hansen, so that's a tough fight. Kay Hansen's good striker, but really good on the ground. She's extremely young and she's only getting better. So this is going to be a tough spot for her. And her husband's on the card. Is that going to affect her mentally? He's first fight on the card, so if he loses, is that going to affect anything? Was he planning on maybe cornering you? What's that dynamic like? You don't know. But all I'm saying is a fight with Kay Hansen would have been very tough. Hansen bails out. You get Montserrat Ruiz on short notice. And again, this is very tough because Montserrat Ruiz is a completely different style. Here's a girl that's fought 5 rounds and her cardio checked out, man. Yeah. I mean, and she's 5 feet tall. Talk about a difficult opponent to game for. But she's one of these crisp, I shouldn't say crisp, but she's a Mexican boxer. She likes to let the hands go. She comes forward. Paul Shaughnessy's big on the fact that she's got a neck tag, which I agree, dude. I've never seen a fighter with a neck tag go backwards, especially in women's MMA.
Not to mention she has the clown from the It tattooed on her freaking calf as well. This girl loves horror movies, apparently.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that she's mean, She's mean and she goes out there and she tries to put it on you. And with Cheyenne Bays, she's making her debut. Again, we've already talked about the narrative that her husband's on the card. Maybe that affects her negatively. But if Montserrat Ruiz just backs her up, lets her hands go and tries to work her a little bit, then she becomes a live underdog. And I think when the line to open is Bays -250 or Bays -250, then that's fair. That's a fair price tag. But you're still getting a debut fighter. You're still getting, women's MMA. We all know anything that can happen. And Ruiz is not a walkover. Yeah, she's taking the fight on ultra short notice, but apparently she thought she was getting signed anyways. So she'd been training, getting ready for a fight, takes this fight. And again, we're going to have to wait to see weigh-ins. But I don't think she's going to look out of shape, but the line has now shifted from minus 250 to minus 340. It got as high as minus 360, I believe. And now it just seems that there's no value there. So where do we see this fight going? Well, Cheyenne Baszler, she's got, 6-1, and the last 6 of them, or she's 5-1. The last 5 of them have gone decision. She finished her pro debut, she won by TKO. And outside of that, the next 5 fights have all gone the distance. I mean, she's someone that likes to control the action with the wrestling. She's got good forward pressure. She's got good output. She herself has good cardio. I can see her trying to push the pace, get Montserrat Ruiz's back up against the cage, try to mix in a couple takedowns, but just go out there and try to out-volume her. But Ruiz is going to hold her ground and let her hands fly as well. When you look at Ruiz, yeah, she's got a nasty scarfold submission her last time out, but let's just say, right? I mean, Janessa Morandin, babe, but she's actually on a 3 currently. That was a third straight loss. But Emily Ducote knocked her out in the first round, and Verna Jandiroba submitted her in the second. Right, so she's been finished very quickly in her last 3 fights. Again, world-class competition. Let me remind you, but maybe didn't check out. Outside of that submission, she went 5 rounds against Saraj Saenz on the regional scene. She went the distance with Soraya Roscoe. And then her wins, dude. 0-0 opponent, 0-2 opponent, 1-1 opponent. She went the distance with the 7-2 opponent. Well, of course, because that's a decent record. That was a decent opponent. This is the UFC, man. She's not going to go and walk out there, I don't think, and knock out or submit Cheyenne Baszler. I think Cheyenne Baszler I think they're both going to fight relatively competitive, be a close enough fight. But I think the thing goes the distance. It's minus 215. That's not the most prettiest of price tags, but I don't think that there's a strong lean on the other side. If I want to chase buys by decision, because again, she's a big favorite. Maybe I want to make it better. Cody thinks she's going to win. Cody thinks the fight goes the distance. So why not try to juice and get? It's minus 160. It wasn't like it's still a big price tag for what you're getting out of this matchup. The Montserrat Ruiz by decision, if you were willing to just take the underdog, and again, this fight's going the decision, it's plus 490. So she goes out there, stuffs a few takedowns, lets her hands fly, lands the more eye-catching shots, and squeaks out a close, maybe even a split, maybe even a greasy decision. Plus 490 will have been well worth it, right? The fight goes the distance, minus 215. Oddsmaker agrees, goes the decision. Buys to win that decision, minus 160. It's not a good price. The flip side to that, Ruiz to win the decision, is a huge price. I feel like that's where the value side would be. But again, I don't bet all these underdogs just because, they got a shot and this and that, and it's probability. And I mean, I'm a degenerate, so I put small sprinkles in everything, but I don't know that I would say Montserrat Ruiz is one of my go-to plays this week. I'm just looking at this fight to go the distance, and I'm minus 215. Maybe I parlay that up with something else, but both girls show some durability. Both girls show, a little bit of ability here. I think that it's going to be a relatively close fight that goes 15.
We saw a Contender Series, a women's MMA fighter last week fall flat on her face. That could absolutely happen this weekend as well, too. And you're asking for trouble if you're willing to pay minus 350 on a UFC newcomer like this. Shout out to our guy Freddie Freeballing in the chat, kind of in a sideways way, going out there and suggesting we should do a Team Baze versus Team De La Rosa fight night, where we got Mark De La Rosa going up against JP, and we got Montana going up against one Cheyenne here. I think we'd go 1-1 there with De La Rosa taking the women's fight and Baze beating De La Rosa here. But one can dream for some type of fight night like that. All right.